Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have the very elusive second variant of the Cryolophosaurus from Mattel for the Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous line. This is the very first time we've had a Camp Cretaceous Cryolophosaurus, and only again the second time we've actually had this figure enter the Jurassic World line, as the first one had kind of like a brighter yellowish paint scheme. This one has a lot more of a darker, more natural looking paint scheme, so I'm a huge fan of this one right here. I have spent weeks now, actually I've spent months I would say, searching for this figure, but it's just so hard to find. Like, as of right now, as of this video, there are usually very few in stores, so again, searching through Targets and Walmarts everywhere, even while I was on vacation, just could not find this one. Until today, I just happened to stumble upon it at Walmart. There was only one sitting on the shelf, and I snatched it up instantly, and then canceled my pre-order on Amazon. So we now have this beauty to take a look at right here. As usual, as far as the artwork here on the box goes, we have the image of the Cryolophosaurus and the action feature here on the bottom left. Of course, the species name and sound strike right there in the center. And then an image over here of Toro, as well as the kids of Camp Cretaceous, or at least 3 of them. And then on the back of the box, we have, again, another image of the Cryolophosaurus. And another image over here, kind of a sneak peek at that kind of booklet thingy I'm not a huge fan of, that we've had the same one about 1,000,000 times at this point, so I'm hoping they switch that up at some point soon. And then down here in the right-hand corner, we have 2 other sound strikes in this wave, which is the Sinoceratops and Grim the Baryonyx. So let's go ahead and break this out of the box right now. And here is our beauty of a Cryolophosaurus, and I must say that this one is just so much nicer than the previous one. I was a huge fan of the previous one because we had the really cool sculpt on it, but I wasn't a huge fan of the paint scheme. I did like it, but this one is much superior if you ask me. So if you're kind of on the hunt for one of the two and you haven't purchased a Cryolophosaurus yet, as far as the Mattel figure goes, this one here is definitely the way to go if you ask me, because the paint scheme is really, really appealing looking and a lot more natural than the one that we previously had. But aside from the paint scheme, everything else is the same. It doesn't appear as though we've got anything new going on with this figure. It's just a total retool of the previous Cryolophosaurus with a new paint application on it, which I'm okay with. I love getting repaints from time to time. Having alternate versions of the same figure is really fun to me, so I'm really happy to have a second variant finally entering the Jurassic World line from Mattel. So let's go ahead, get a closer look at this right now. So again, just like I had stated a moment ago, there is nothing new sculpt-wise, and we have already reviewed the sculpt of this figure, so we're only going to really take a look at what is new with this version, and that would be the paint scheme. So as far as the primary body color, we have a really dark blue. Initially, I thought it was a black. When you see the promotional images, it definitely looks like it's a black coloration, but here in person and under a nice light, it definitely has just a really dark blue color. Although if you don't have it in like a brighter light like this, it could definitely be mistaken for a black because it is a very, very dark shade of blue. But I really quite like the coloration that they've chosen, that shade of blue for the figure. You have a nice gray, like a very light gray here on the lower jaw, which really shows off the scale detail here of the lower jaw. But you can see that gray runs down here to the throat. You have a little bit of like hanging skin right here that they've also given that grayish color to. And then you can see it actually picks back up here again on the underside, starting in like the lower part of the chest and then running back here to right around where the cloaca would be if this were, you know, anatomically correct. But while we're down here, we also have the Jurassic Facts app if you would like to add this to your collection. But we also have some more of that gray up here on the side of the Cryolophosaurus, and it's just kind of like speckled and splattered all over. It almost looks like somebody took just a bunch of paint and just slopped it on the side, which I really quite like, the very erratic look to that area of paint. I definitely think it looks quite nice. And you have this reddish coloration up here at the top, which does exactly the same thing. You can see it kind of run along this almost sail-like area that Mattel has given that very small area right here in the back, but you can see it kind of splatters down in a similar fashion of what we see with this white. So it blends really well with that white coloration having such a similar appearance, but obviously different tones of color. And then when we lead back up here into the head, you have another shade of red. It's very similar to this, but It's just a slightly different shade, and that may just be because of the material used. The color might just play off of that material a little differently than what we see here, but it definitely looks like a bit of a lighter shade of red right there. And you can see that runs up here on the trademark Cryolophosaurus crest, and then down here on the snout. So that looks really cool, and the way that that red plays off of that dark blue is just beautiful. The eye is painted with a green, and unfortunately they haven't given it a black pupil. They've just given it the dark blue that they have behind it, but since that dark blue is such a dark tone of color, it doesn't really matter. On this one, it definitely still looks really quite nice and natural. The eye paint isn't perfect, I will say that, on either side, but it's not terrible either. You can also see that the teeth are painted, and they're painted with a really nice kind of a yellowish coloration, like a light yellow, which definitely adds a big dose of realism to the figure, not giving it like bright white, pearly white teeth that are often taken care of thanks to a prehistoric dentist or a Jurassic Park dentist, I guess. But regardless, the teeth definitely have a very realistic tone of color to them. The jaw is articulated, and on the inside of the mouth, you can see that really nicely sculpted out tongue is painted beautifully with a really nice kind of a purplish coloration, a very light purple. And then you can see here like that skin flap area of the side of the mouth also has that purplish coloration to it. Actually, it's more like a pinkish color, I would say, or like it's tough to tell. It's like a variation of like a pink and purple sort of combined. And then here on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, you can see that there is no paint up there, although in the inside of the mouth it does appear as though we have like some speckling going on, and I don't see that too much. Oh yeah, actually it is out here. You can see there's like a white speckling showing up here and there. So Mattel does tend to give us the speckling appearance on the figures, and I didn't pick it out right away on this one, but I can definitely see it now the more I look at it. There's like a white speckling. You can actually really see it down here in the legs showing up. Unfortunately, we don't have any nail paint on either the hands or the feet, which definitely is something that could have made a pretty nice difference on the figure as far as the overall beauty of it. We don't have any paint that runs out onto the tail either, as far as like these various colors up here. They stop dead right here before the hip even, and then that's it. We don't have any difference of color out there on the tail other than that dark blue, but I still think it is just a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous Soundstrike Cryolophosaurus. As far as articulation on our Cryolophosaurus, it's all the same articulation that we usually get, and if I operate the articulated jaw, I can almost guarantee you the noise is going to make. This one is really jumpy, and every movement it seems that I make with this, it makes the roar, or sound strike, I guess you could say, type of a noise. So if it does go off, then you'll at least get a chance to hear what the sound is like, which is exactly the same, I believe, as the previous one. But we do have the articulated jaw. It actually didn't go off. It's pretty stiff, honestly, but it will obviously loosen up with time. We also have articulation here in the arms, which move forward and back, and then out away from the body if our Cryolophosaurus attempts to fly away. We have articulation in the legs, which works pretty well. It's definitely a little stiff, but again, a little bit of time of moving that around should loosen it up quite nicely. We can move the legs out away from the body as well, but not super far. And then we have articulation in the tail, which if we articulate the tail, it is definitely going to move the head, because that's kind of part of the action feature, which is then going to activate the sound strike feature. So let's just move it around here. So you can do all sorts of movements with the head, and it works really nicely. And there we can see again what I was talking about, how it just goes off constantly. But as far as a size goes for our Cryolophosaurus, for a length, you are looking at right around just a hair under 13 inches, honestly, or about 33 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point would definitely be the crest up there, and you were looking at right around the 5 and actually just under 5.5 inches, or about the 13.5, 14 centimeter range. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon, also from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, in comparison to our Cryolophosaurus here, the Soundstrike version. And as usual, it's pretty much the same size range as all of the other Soundstrike figures usually are, definitely right in the exact same size range as the previous Cryolophosaurus, but obviously a similar size range to other theropods like the Ceratosaurus, Allosaurus, all of that fun stuff. So if you already have one of the Soundstrike or Roarivore theropods, you'll definitely already know the size of this one. So this newest version of the Soundstrike Cryolophosaurus from Mattel for the Jurassic World, now Camp Cretaceous line, is a gorgeous Cryolophosaurus and so much better than the first version. The first version I was definitely a fan of, but this one absolutely destroys the previous one as far as the coloration goes, and I am a huge fan of the sculpt, of course, but the paint scheme of this one is so nice looking. It's so nice to the eyes. It's just really appealing looking in every area that you look. The only thing I think that could have improved the figure a bit would have been to give it some more paint of like that white or that gray or whatever you want to call that, and then the red that ran out onto the tail, maybe down the legs a little bit. Definitely could have improved the overall appearance a little by adding more paint onto it and then giving, of course, some nail paint, but at this point, we're kind of used to this style paintwork from Mattel, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So as far as what Mattel usually gives us, this is a really nice looking paint job and paint scheme for our Cryolophosaurus. Of course, the sculpt is fantastic. It was the first time, it is this time, it will be if they release it again. It is just a gorgeous and incredibly highly detailed sculpt on this Cryolophosaurus. And then, of course, you have some really fun articulation for your Cryolophosaurus, a fun action feature, which is nothing that's too over the top, pretty nice and natural looking action feature, as well as sound for your Cryolophosaurus. So it pretty much is the total package as far as a Cryolophosaurus release goes. But again, I'm just a huge fan of this newest look for the figure. I don't know if we'll get another one at some point of the Cryolophosaurus. There are a lot of other species from Mattel out currently I would like to see get a second release, like the Dimetrodon or the Postosuchus, ones like that. Even the Scutosaurus would be an awesome one to see another release, but this Cryolophosaurus definitely needed a second release, and I'm really happy to see it turn out as nice as it has. So hopefully you guys will be able to acquire this if it shows up in your area. Again, I found mine at Walmart, which was the first time I've seen one in person, so keep checking both Walmart and Target, as I have heard they've shown up in both places. And it is available on Amazon usually, but you'll be paying scalper prices, unfortunately, there most times, unless it happens to pop up again at retail. But anything's possible at this point, I'd say. So either way, make sure you pick it up, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.